Hello, Garland Nixon here, and NATO is kicking off their big summit in Washington, D.C. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here. I'm back. I was actually over the weekend, went down to the beach with friends and family members and all kinds of stuff like that, and had a couple days down at Rehoboth in Delaware. Very nice area, um, and had a blast. Went fishing a little bit, and didn't catch much, but that's okay. But I had fun and got some relaxation in. Okay, so let's talk about back and the NATO summit. It started fired up here in Washington, D.C. Oh my gosh, we could go on for hours and hours about that. But one of the things that I um, had to throw in here about the summit is the big lie. And it's important. It is important. I named it a comedy of terrors, kind of like a comedy of errors, right? Play off of that. But the big lie, and I mean this is critical. This is where we are right now. This is the biggest lie of the world. This is the lie. I would call it an existential lie, right? A lie that's existential to humanity. Okay, and this is what NATO's all about. This is what's causing all the confusion in really in the world. I mean, about the whole Ukraine thing. And I mean, it's a disaster. And I'll start by saying this before I say exactly what the big lie is, right? I will refer back to a book I once read called The Confidence Game, Why It Works Every Time, right? And one of the things they talked about was a number of things where a number of instances, the confidence game is about a con artist, confidence game, con artist, right? And one of the cons they talk about that works, and they give an example of it, is telling a lie so big that nobody thinks you would tell a lie that big, right? And they give an example of a guy who said he had AIDS back in the 1980s, and he started this big, uh, uh, um, fundraising organization to raise money for people who had AIDS. So much so, and it got so big that he got the president's wife at the time, which was George W. Bush's wife, Barbara Bush. She was involved and had a fundraiser. So this guy raised millions. He did all of this stuff based on this. He was had HIV and he was blah blah blah, right? But there was only one problem. It eventually came out he didn't have it. It was all a lie. And nobody had really questioned him. Nobody had really asked him for any, proof that he had AIDS. Why? Because one of the ways to get away with conning people is to tell a lie so big that nobody thinks that you would tell a lie, that nobody thinks that anybody, tell a lie that you have cancer, tell a lie, whatever, right? Tell a huge lie. And it works because people think nobody tell a lie that big. And that's one of the things that governments do to their people, right? There's a combination of something called the big lie and the noble lie, right? The big lie being in the confidence game, in the con artist game, being a lie so big that nobody would ever think anybody would tell a lie that big. The noble lie, and I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with this, the noble lie being basically, we are your intellectual superiors. We are your we're the nobility and you're nobodies. You're peasants. You're below us. As far as on the social scale. And you couldn't possibly be smart enough to understand the world the way we nobles do and to see things the way we elite ruling class people do. So I'll tell a noble lie. In other words, I'm telling a lie. Yes, it's a lie. Clearly, it's a lie. I know it's a lie. Everybody in my class that I'm working with, we all know it's a lie, but we're saying it for your own good. It's a noble lie because you wouldn't be smart enough to understand it. And if we try to explain it to you, why we need to do this or that, you wouldn't understand it. So we will tell a lie for your own good. But it's a noble lie because we can't tell you the truth because you're not intellectually adept enough to really understand it, right? So that's that. There's various kinds of lies that ruling elite use. Okay, and when I talk about the big lie that is driving NATO right now, it's really not a noble lie for this reason. It's not that the ruling elite are saying if you understood the truth about Ukraine and the Ukraine conflict and why Russia is there, if you understood that, you would go along with us because it's in your best interest. Because the truth of it is, it's not in their best interest, and they know it. So this is not a noble lie. I guess we've got to come up with another word or name for it, because they're not saying it because they think that they're intellectually superior to us and we wouldn't understand it. But if we could, if our poor little minds could, we'd go along with it. No, they know that it's not in our best interest. And so instead of coming up with a lie to try to convince us it's in our best interest, we're doing it to protect you from terrorism, right? Instead of that, or economically or something, they just come up with a lie that they have to intervene on behalf of goodness. This is like the Crusades. It's a moral crusade, right? We're going around the world, we're seeking out evil, and we're intervening and mitigating evil on behalf of good. And by the way, democracy is good and everything else is evil. And we decide what's democracy and what's everything else. So why are we doing this? If I were to get, to trim the lie down to its foundation, the foundation, of course, is going to be we're doing it because we're good, and we're doing it for the purposes of good, to stop the machinations of evil, right? But certainly it comes down to the Russians are evil, their leadership is evil, everything about them is evil, and because they're evil, again, this is a shadowy lie, but they don't like democracy because democracy is good and they're evil. So therefore, Vladimir Putin wants to stop democracy on his border. That's one version of the big lie. They just don't want it. He is Vladimir Putin. Remember, it's not Russia. Also, it's Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is by his very nature, he's imperialist and expansionist, completely unlike us. We're here to fight imperialism and expansionism. The United States is here to do good. And if we see somebody that's trying to do imperialism and has an expansionist military foreign policy, dog, fight it all. We got to be here to stop it. And that's what else would Joe Biden and Tony Blinken do other than stand against imperialism and expansionist militaristic foreign policies? So so it all comes down to this. We are stopping Vladimir Putin from imperialism, from expansionism, from attacking a poor little innocent democracy, right? We're there to do good. We're there to intervene in the world as good on behalf of good. We're good, and so therefore we're acting on behalf of good to stop evil. Whoever we say that we're up against is doing evil. That's what it comes down to. That's the big lie. We're there for good. Because you notice something, it keeps the lie of why we're supporting Ukraine, it has evolved, as we say, right? It was originally Vladimir Putin is imperialist and expansionist, and he's just evil. And that kind of shifted into a little bit, well, he hates democracy and he doesn't want to see a democracy on his border, right? To, he wants to grab land. It's a land grab, and there's resources and all kinds of things. And so he wants to land grab. So this thing just keeps morphing and changing and adjusting. But it all boils down to he wants to do evil things, and we're there to mitigate in the world throughout the search the world for evil and to stop it, right? So whatever iteration you get of the reason that we're in Ukraine, we're there to stop imperialism, we're there to stop militarism, expansionism, we're there on behalf of democracy, we're there to oppose authoritarianism. Whatever version you get of that, it's all the same thing. It's all one big lie. The U.S. is leading a group of do-gooders to stop evil. It is the modern day iteration of the Crusades. They're there for moral reason. This is a moral crusade. Before it was a religious crusade, right? Now it's a moral crusade. Same kind of thing. A religious crusade is at its core supposed to be a moral crusade. Those people won't go to heaven if we don't, act on their behalf and bring them into whatever it is our particular religion is. So we're acting as we're doing the moral thing on behalf of God. I always wondered something though about that. Anybody who says they're acting on behalf of God, right? Oh, we're doing this. Why? For God. We're trying to stop abortion. Why? For God. We're trying to, whatever it is that is your thing, right? If you're opposed to something, hey, you got a right to. If you're in favor of something, hey, whether I agree with it or not is irrelevant. If you got a right to have a position, whether you're opposed to something or in favor of it. But when people say they're doing God's work, I always wondered about that. It's like, I thought God could do anything. So you're going to tell me you worship this God that can do anything. He created the whole universe. At the snap of a finger. Of course, he had fingers, which I guess God doesn't really have fingers. I don't know how that works. But let's just say for the sake of argument, God had fingers, right? He snaps his fingers and planets appear and suns disappear and people do that. All these things happening. But he can't do whatever it is you want him to do, pass a particular bill against abortion in a given state or on behalf of abortion in a given state, whatever the case may be. But he can't get that done without you. I always wondered about people who said they were doing God's work. And I always felt like, well, can't God just say, I don't want it that way? And because I'm God, if I don't want it that way, it ain't going to happen that way. It's kind of my universe. Hey, you know what? I'm going to make time flow backwards for 5 minutes and then that will never have happened. I mean, you're God. Right? If you could do that, do you really need to Garland? Hey, Garland, what happened? God here. I've been trying to fix this transmission. I just can't get it right. Could you take a look at it for me? I'd be like, you're God. I mean, hey, I would think you could fix the transmission at least. So I don't know. There are a lot of people out here that claim they're doing God's work. And I just always thought that was a little weird because it kind of goes against the concept of an omnipotent being who's in control of the entire universe. And he needs some schmuck from Sheboygan to do something that he can't possibly accomplish. Maybe it's just me. I find a logical problem there. But who knows? What do I know? I ain't God, right? Oh, then again, from a perspective of a man of Zen, to some extent, I am God, right? I mean, if we're all God, if we are all, what is it, a mask? We are all the million masks of God, that we're all just playing the part of the universe and stuff like that. I don't know, I guess, whatever. So we're all God, me and you included, right? So, but whatever the case, if I'm God and you're God, let's not ask people to do stuff. Let's just handle it ourselves. That's all I'm saying. Hey, can you make me a cup of iced tea? Why? Because I'm God. God likes iced tea. Come on and add a little bit of lemonade. Make it half and half, would you? Arnold Palmer, because God loves Arnold Palmer, you know him. Anyway, but whatever the case may be, all jokes aside, let's get back to what's serious here. So what's going on is this. NATO can't admit the truth. None of them. Good with NATO being the U.S. And that is that the Ukraine conflict ain't even about Russia and Ukraine. It's the big lie that the NATO, that's the big lie. That the Ukraine conflict is about Ukraine and Russia. It's not. They are bit players in a movie. For instance, if I'm going to build a house, I start with the foundation. Right? I got to dig a hole and I pour some cement in there. Right? But that's not, what are you doing there? I'm pouring a foundation. No, I'm not. I'm building a house. Pouring a foundation is the beginning. It's the starting of doing. It's part of the whole thing. But I can't arbitrarily say, what are you doing? I'm pouring a foundation. Anything else? Any reason? Nah, just pouring a foundation. What are you going to do after that? I haven't decided yet. Well, why would you pour a foundation if you're not going to build a house? Pouring a foundation is an integral part of building the house. Okay? You're not just pouring a foundation, you're doing something larger. Okay. So my point being this, Ukraine and Russia is not, it's pouring a foundation when you're building a house. It is part of doing something that allows you to accomplish something bigger. The foundation is there, but you won't even see it in the end. So pouring your foundation is, I'm going to take out Russia. It is the United States overthrew the government of Ukraine in 2014. That can't be discussed because if that's true, the rest of the narrative dissolves. If it's true, if it's true that the U.S. overthrew the government of Ukraine, then the whole idea of Putin being bad, of Putin having no real reason to invade Ukraine, having no justification for it, he just arbitrarily did it because he's bad or mean or whatever the case may be, and we have to stop him. Those things don't align with an actual story which involves the U.S. overthrowing the government of a country on Russia's border. So the fact of the matter is, it's all a lie. When you get rid of the main part of this argument, of this story, right, of this paradigm that the U.S. started this, then I could go back further, but the war started part of it, the physical part of it started when the U.S., the, shall we say, kinetic part started when the U.S. overthrew the government. That's when people started getting shot. That's when people started getting burned up in trade houses, trade buildings, and union buildings and things like that, right? You know, so the bottom line is, if the U.S. started it with a violent coup, you cannot argue that the Russians are doing it just to expand, steal land, stop democracy. Because guess what? If the U.S. overthrew the government of Ukraine and installed the government, then it's not a democracy anymore, is it? It's just a puppet state. And the U.S. becomes the perpetrator. The U.S. becomes the doer of evil. The U.S. becomes the instigator of conflict. Isn't that what this is about? We have a conflict. Who instigated the conflict? What the big NATO lie is, Russia instigated the conflict in February of 2022 because they just decided out of the blue to attack a country. The truth is, the U.S. empire overthrew the government in 2014 and immediately began preparing that country for war with Russia. They look, when you go from town to town, all of these towns that they're fighting and villages that they're fighting for, the big ones, right, in Ukraine that the Russians have taken, and you look at it and you say, wow, they're highly fortified. And why? Because they fortified. Why? Because they started in 2014, 2015, 2016, some of them in that range. So the U.S. overthrew the government, installed a puppet government, and began fortifying these towns for a war against Russia. Gee, I wonder why you would fortify towns for a war against Russia, unless you wanted a war against Russia. Again, the big lie is that the U.S. empire is somehow surprised, and that the U.S. is gathering together its allies to stop an evil perpetrator. That ain't true. And the horror they have is, the more people find that out, the more difficult it gets to pursue their overall goal, because the foundation is to take out Russia. The thing to do is world domination. That this is the truth. That this thing is about world domination. That's why now, even as NATO is really a laughing stock in the goal in throughout the world of reasonable people. A laughing stock in a way, in that you look at it and you say, you got to be kidding me, this flock of morons, you know. But it's not, in that people also look at it and say they're very, very dangerous. I mean, you've got, it's like, what is it, giving a monkey a razor blade? That's what it's like, putting nuclear weapons in the hands of these clowns. So they're very, very dangerous, but God knows they're incompetent. So what we have is the NATO, I'm not going to call them leaders, but the people coming together to go against what? What is their term they use? Russian aggression. That implies that Russia was the aggressor here. That implies that because Russia joined an ongoing war, we can't pretend that there was not a war going on. They joined an ongoing war, that they become the aggressor. Now, where is this war, by the way? It's on the border of Russia. And who's supporting, who's arming this? The United States is on Russia's border. Is Russia on the United States border? No. Nope. Is Russia doing anything? Nope. Russia's not arming, fighting, doing anything on the U.S.'s border. And what else is the U.S. doing? It's on China's border, doing the same exact thing in Taiwan. So what we're supposed to believe is that Russia and China are aggressive, militaristic imperial powers, because when the United States comes to their border overthrows, takes over governments, and starts arming these countries and fortifying these places for war against their neighbor, against their superpower neighbor, that when the US does that, that means that they're the aggressor. Taiwan, the United States, literally, and almost all of the world recognizes Taiwan as part of China. And the United States says Taiwan is part of China. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to arm Taiwan to fight China because we're the good guys, knowing that Taiwan would last hours against China. That Taiwan, if China decided to take Taiwan, it would be poor Taiwan would be turned to rubble in seconds. But the US doesn't care because they're not there to do. This is not about Taiwan. This is not about China. And this is not about Russia. And a lot of people won't believe that. They'll say, no, 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 Garland. They want to take China out and Russia's the big enchilada. Well, I mean, in China, they want to take Russia out. China's the big enchilada. Yeah, in a way. To what end? To world domination. That's all it is. So ultimately, all of these are building blocks. Here's the reality of what's going on. All of these are building blocks for world domination. We want to dominate the world. We no longer dominate the world. We feel as though we dominate the world. We could argue whether or not we ever really did, but that would be, just, how you view things. Those would be our opinions of whether or not the U.S. dominated the world. But it had some very, very powerful infrastructure, economic infrastructure, military infrastructure. Now that technology is changing, that's not the same. The military infrastructure that we had 850 bases at one time. Those 800 and however it was, between 800 and 900 bases. At one time, those were bases of power and strength and intimidation. At one time, if we can surround you with bases, you're in a deep and serious set of, bit of trouble. Now the problem is we surround you with bases. We've just surrounded you with targets. Right now, what does Iran say? They say, hey, dude, what is the Axis of Resistance saying in the Middle East? Look, if this thing kicks off and you go after Lebanon, all your bases are fair game. So the bases that once were bases of power and intimidation that we can launch strikes from are now sitting ducks for powerful missiles and drones. The gigantic surface ships that we had that from World War II that were once, intimidating, powerful surface ships that gave us this international, worldwide, as they called it, a blue water navy. These were powerful military tools of intimidation. They were powerful military tools to project power around the world. You know what they are now? Targets. You go up against somebody right now with the USS Eisenhower, like Russia and China. How long do you think it would take them? Even even Iran. If you put those ships in range of Iran, what are you going to do when hundreds of drones, maybe 1,000 drones, comes whistling into that ship with a couple dozen high-speed missiles behind it? You got to hit, and you got to, a salvo of missiles. As you probably know, there are mathematical formulas that you can do to see how many, if you fire a salvo of missiles, how many missiles you need to fire to guarantee a hit, right? And how many missiles, so you can do mathematical formulas. If I fire 5 missiles, then, the likelihood of one of them striking is whatever, 64%. If I fire 10 missiles, it goes up to 94%. And then on and on and on until I fire 20, 25 missiles at a carrier, and the odds of 4 or 5 of them hitting become 80%. The odds of one of them hitting, like 99.9%. Bottom line is you can now fire salvos of missiles, particularly if you got hypersonic missiles, and you can almost guarantee that you can hit these floating targets. So the fact of the matter is the world just isn't what it was before. The U.S. just can't project power like it did before. So what it's doing with this big lie with NATO, I'm going to bring all of my people together, all my schmucks, all of my vassals and colonies together. And I'm going to say, okay, I know it's tough, right? I know you guys are going to suffer economically, bad. Struggle. I know your people are going to go bananas and hate your guts, but who cares? I don't really care about that. That's your problem. Here's what we're going to do. You think your people are angry now? Wait until I throw them at Russia and China and wherever else I need is cannon fodder. So that's what the U.S. wants to do right now. It's setting up the NATO summit is the coalition of the cannon fodder. That's all they are. Be they military cannon fodder in some instances, such as Ukraine, or economic cannon fodder in Europe. It's cannon fodder. It's a coalition of cannon fodder. The colonial cannon fodder is what they are. And right now, you can pretty much write Europe off. Europe is done. Now, we are certainly here in the U.S. done at some point also. We'll be around a bit longer than Europe, but Europe is going to be a backwater, impoverished area. I mean, there's no way around that. And the U.S. that's the setup for them. But you think that's bad news. The worst news is the U.S. is trying to now build a coalition. They want NATO to go worldwide, right? They're like, we want NATO in the Asia Pacific too. Why? Because we want to go after China. So you've got a U.S., a failing country, that's falling apart, that is politically collapsing, economically in dire straits, up to its ears in unpayable debt, as they say, an unpayable debt. One thing we know about unpayable debt, right? It'll never get paid. They're in a world of trouble and just absolutely politically unstable. And while all that's going on, they can't get a grip on things at home. They can't figure out what to do. The Democratic Party can't figure out what to do with Joe Biden, how they're going to handle the election. They're absolute disaster. But one thing they can figure out is that they ought to be running the world. I mean, think about that. Think about some guy that says that you say, okay, you give him a job running a 7-Eleven and he botches it up. He screws it up. He loses everything. He gets the money confused, loses the money, loses the combination to the safe. He forgets to pay the employees. I mean, he just destroys that 7-Eleven. It goes to pieces. And you come to him and you say, man, you're really wrecking that 7-Eleven. He says, yeah, I know. I think I should be governor. Governor? Yes, I think I should be governor of the state of California. Really, dude, you can't run a 7-Eleven, right? That makes sense, doesn't it? You can't run a 7-Eleven. You should not be able to run something larger like the state of California. Okay. But what we're looking at is a country right now. Let's just go with this, a party, but it's a uniparty, but the Democratic Party that is unable to maintain a healthy political party. It's coming unglued. They got a guy that don't know what the hell he's doing. He doesn't, can't find his butt in a well-lit room. He's a guy who's suffering from some very serious cognitive impairment. And the party doesn't know what to do to handle it. They rigged their primaries, and now they need to get rid of him. And he's an evil old codger saying, no, I won't go. And they don't know how to deal with it. It is a mess. And of course, the Republicans are running Trump, and God knows, I understand. But I mean, there are people that somehow think Trump can do the job and he'll be a good president or something. He's going to do a great job and he's a savior. That tells you how bad of shape this country is in. That tells you how bad the Democratic Party is. When people look at the Biden administration and say, well, Trump's probably be better. Trump? Look at this guy. He ain't real bright. He's not real sharp. He doesn't know politics. He's just, you know what it is? He's not one of them. He's something different. And people sadly have hope. It's sad. You know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of Bernie Sanders to some of these so-called fake lefties, right? A guy that gives them hope where there is none. There ain't no hope in the Democratic Party, but Bernie gives them hope that maybe there's a left in the Democratic Party that'll stand up against imperialism. What a joke. And Trump is a guy that gives people who are conservatives and some people that aren't hope that maybe somebody's going to come in here and straighten this mess out. It ain't happening. It doesn't work that way. It's just not that simple. That's a very simplistic way of looking at politics. If Trump tried to do the right thing, which he won't, they'd kill him. They kill him. They ain't letting their trillions of dollars of stolen money stop coming in because Trump's going to come in and try to do the right thing. So if he was, which he ain't, they do him in. But we're now looking at this NATO summit. So as I said, they're here living off the big lie that they're there to fight Russian aggression. When people who study it know it ain't Russian aggression. They aggressed themselves to Russia's border. They fortified a country to be cannon fodder to fight against Russia. And just as they planned. Russia is at war with this country, but they thought the country could do better. Actually, they thought that within weeks the Russian economy would crash. When the Russian economy didn't crash in weeks, they weren't sure what to do, so they came up with a narrative that Ukraine was going to win. I mean, that's the truth. They came up with a narrative. When reality didn't suit them, they created a narrative. What are we going to do? Russia didn't crash. Ukraine's going to win. Yeah, that's it. Let's run with that one. Ukraine's going to win. Russia's losing. Ukraine is shooting down. Russia fired 54 missiles at Ukraine, and Ukraine shot down 55. I mean, that's just okay. So they got an absurd, and then we'll make up some false flag things. Oh yeah, buka, hookah, smuka, whatever. Russia blew up a maternity hospital, a children's hospital, a puppies hospital, all that kind of crap. That's what they're going to do day and night. Russia used nukes and poison gas and, oh my God, weapons of mass destruction. So they're just going to keep making up lie after lie and narrative after narrative because they didn't have a plan. They never had a plan. The plan was Russia's going to collapse. And if it didn't collapse, they never had a plan after that. So in reality, they came up with a narrative that Russia would collapse, which was preposterous on its face. And when their preposterous narrative did what preposterous narratives do, collapsed, they didn't have a second one. So they just started inventing narrative after narrative. And part of the narrative is Russia is an evil aggressor attacking poor, plucky little Ukraine who's standing up. Now, might I add, and this is critical, a big part of the this whole narrative is that they're acting. NATO is acting on behalf of Ukraine, standing up for Ukraine. Here's what I have to say. Well, I hope they never stand up for me. That's what standing up for you looks like. What are the results? How's this guy that you're supporting, standing up for, that you're saving and looking out for? How's things going working for him? How's things working for Ukraine right now? Is this what you'd want? Hey, Garland, this big guy wants to fight you. I think you should fight him. I'm like, no, you kidding me? That guy will kill me. No, that's Mike Tyson. You want to get in a ring with Mike Tyson? I'll be beaten mercilessly. No, Garland, you're tough. We'll back you. I'm going to be beaten. And then I come over to the side, my eyes swollen. I got a cauliflower ear. My teeth are bashed out. Blood's running out of my nose. Okay, guys, I've had enough. I can't fight. Oh no, keep going. We're supporting you. That ain't supporting me. Supporting me would say, come right over here to the side. Go see this doctor. Do not get back in the ring with that guy because he's going to knock your friggin' head off. That would be helping somebody out, right? Since when is helping and supporting Ukraine? Since when is that supporting a system where a bunch of guys ride around the streets of Ukraine at night looking for some poor idiot that's walked up the street to get a loaf of milk, a loaf of bread and some milk? Hey, honey, can you go up the street and get me some milk? Yes, honey, I'll do it. So his wife asks him to goes up. He walks up the street. Some guys run up behind him, bop him in the head, throw him in the back of the van, and he wakes up. He's had a half an hour of training, and he's on the Russian front right now with a Fab 1500 bombs raining all around him until he gets disemboweled by a piece of shrapnel and buried. And then the wife calls, what happened to my husband? Yeah, MIA. We're not going to send you any money because he's missing in action right now. We're sure he'll be back soon. He ain't coming back soon. And that's not support. That ain't looking out for the country. Looking out for a country is when it's getting battered, beaten, and bashed to pieces by missiles and the like, is to say, man, this don't look, guys, good. You're getting the hell beat out of you. Let's come up with a way to stop you getting beat up to finish this off. But look what they're doing to Europe. Same thing. The big lie is actually that this is part of the big lie. The Europeans are suffering because they need to do good. It's that kind of like suffering cleanses you, almost like it's a religious experience where you must suffer so that you can become better. You watch these, you can improve. You watch these movies with a hero, and the hero's winning, and then he gets captured, beaten up, broken down, all that, and he's down. And just before you think it's all over for the hero, somehow he gets his strength and he stands up. One of the great instances of that was that first Thor movie. It was a great part where Thor was on Earth and he was just a regular guy. He wasn't the god of thunder and all of that. And some robot comes and whacks him, and he looks like he's dead, right? And he's laying there, and the Thor's hammer goes flying through the air and comes up, and he sticks his hand up, and the hammer hits him, and he turns into the Thor, the god of thunder, and he's all powerful again, right? Just when you think it's all over for him, he goes down to the bottom, and just before he hits rock bottom, or when he hits rock bottom, he gets, you know, the game. He gets his power, and he comes back, right? And he suffered so he could be better. He suffered so he could improve. He had to suffer first. He had to learn. He had to maybe even die, whether it's the Matrix or, you know, or the same with Thor. They literally had to die. Kind of the Jesus thing going on, right? Where they came back powerful, and they could see everything now and understand it clearly, and they were wiser and all that stuff, right? And I think that's the dynamic that they're kind of trying to play off on Europe. Yeah, are you suffering? Fair enough. Are you hungry? Yeah. How about your jobs? Well, you're getting deindustrialized, and you know, all those sitting out at those days in Europe when you used to sit out at under an awning on a street cafe and drink wine and grapes and cheese and things like that, and talk about you know, philosophical things, the arts and stuff like that. Those days are gone. Okay, ain't happening. You're going to be running from criminal streets. You're going to be impoverished. No wine, no cheese for you. You will be running around living in what are they? Lean-tos and shanty towns. Your life will be a living hell, and you ain't coming back from that. But they're trying to teach. They're trying to tell you in Europe. Part of that big lie is that you have to suffer for poor little Ukraine. One of the most, if not the most, one of the most corrupt countries in the world, where not only the US is sending and Europe is sending all of this billions, tens of billions, literally hundreds of billions of dollars into Ukraine, and the crooks are stealing it, pilfering it, and sending it right back to the hands of some of these very same Bidens and you know, some of these other, you know, people in Brussels. So they're telling you you have to suffer for poor little Ukraine, so all this money can go to Ukraine, and then of course it ends up right back in their pockets. And guess what? The part where you suffer and you become better and you come back as the superhero with all the knowledge, and you suffered and you went through this stuff time, and now you're going to come out way ahead. Yeah, that ain't happening. That only happens in Marvel mysteries. That only happens in the superhero flicks. In reality, guess what happens? You're getting had. You're getting robbed. You're getting stolen from. And that's where they are. So NATO's got to come together now. And what's interesting is I read an article, what they were talking about NATO, and they said one of the things that a couple of things NATO wanted to accomplish. One of them is they want to kind of remind everyone that it's worthwhile to invest in defense. Invest, right? You're investing, which means you're going to get something back. In defense, which means you're defending yourself or something. What they really mean is this: we want your money. This is a stick up. That's what Biden's really saying to France and Germany, to the people of France and Germany, the people of Europe, of Europe. He's saying, look, I'm trying to say this the nice way. I'm trying to be kind about this. I'm trying to say this in a way that won't hurt anybody's feelings. This is a stick up. Put your hands in the air. Empty your pockets. When I leave, when Biden leaves out of here, when these people go home, the people of Europe, as they say on the streets, your pockets will be looking like elephant ears. They'll be, both of your pockets will be hanging out at the end of this, buddy. This is about Tony Blinken showing you that investing, right? Invest implies that you're going to put something in and you're going to get something back. You've got to invest in defense. So he's got to remind everybody, look, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, BAE Systems, they got to eat, man. And it's critical for you to spend all of your hard-earned tax money from Belgium and Germany, send it over here so they can eat. And what as for you, yeah, you'll be better off, whatever, shut up. And your leaders here, you know how you know that you're in good shape, Germany? Because Olaf Scholz is here. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, that's right. Last time he came, they blew up the frigate Nord Stream. And then he came afterwards so they could shake his hand. Good job. Thanks for blowing up the Nord Stream, Biden. You know, nothing to it. Anytime there, Olaf. So basically, they've sent, I mean, look at the people. Macron, despised by his people. Olaf Scholz, absolutely. What's he got? 14% approval rating. But, these clowns, Starmer, he just walked in. And the only reason he got elected was because people hated Sunak and those clowns, but they hate him too. I mean, the Tories were able to get a really big majority, but they didn't get a lot of votes because people know that they're being had. And the bottom line is this is the end of the line for the ruling elite in the UK. End of the line. What are they going to do now? The ruling elite have played it as far as they could. First, they played the old Tories' hand and they screwed them and stole all their money and sent it over to be divided up by the oligarchs in Ukraine and the US. And they took their fair share. You best believe that the ruling elite in Europe got their fair share. Okay. So they did that, and they did it with the Tories, and they just sacrificed the Tories. They're like, that's why they didn't give a, you think they gave a shit? People were like, the Tories are going to lose. The Tories are going to get wiped out. And the Tories are like, yeah, oh, well, that's really terrible. Now we won't have to work. We won't have to come up to, the parliament anymore. No more meetings, and we'll get our share because we've funneled all the money to the right people. Hey, look at Tony Blair. All he did, you think, what is he worth? Hundreds of millions of dollars now? Why? Because he did his dirty deeds and he's been paid well for it. He got his golden parachute. And you think these Tories that lost, you think they actually lost? They didn't lose anything. They don't have to work now, and they will get their cushy jobs from the companies, Pfizer or whatever, that they shipped unthinkable amounts of money to. So they're thrilled. And now what happens? Starmer comes in. And you know what? They're just going to like, yeah, okay, we finished with the Tories. We made every dime we could use in them. What's up now? Starmer, you're up. Time to play the game. Starmer comes in and continues doing the same thing because he doesn't care. Starmer's like this. What are you going to do? Vote the Tories back in? He's laughing. He's laughing in the face of the British people. And what he's saying to them is when they're like, we hate you, Starmer. And he's like, what are you going to do? Vote the Tories back in? Shut up. You get nothing. That's where Europe is. Where the U.S. is. That's where the entire U.S. empire is. So now they've got the foreign policy is we just lied to you. We're trying to run the world, and we're starting with Russia. And darn, this whole thing in Gaza's not helping. But we don't have a better plan, so we're going to keep going forward because we're going to run this world. Oh, by the way, we got to get ready to fight China. They can't beat the Houthis. NATO's losing to the Houthis. NATO to Ansar Allah in Yemen. NATO's got all French ships there, British ships there, German ships there. All these people got ships there, and they're losing to Ansar Allah. And these are the people that want to fight with China and Russia. Yeah, give that a shot. You're going to lose. But they are here. Let's look at something. The NATO summary, right? And let's look at a little bit. Why don't we look and see what the heck these clowns and idiots are trying to pull off? All right, let's look here. All right, Tuesday, July 9th, that would be today. Now, here's what kills me. So here's where they're starting. Women, Peace and Security Roundtable. Remarks by NATO Secretary General Special Representative Irene Felin and U.S. Ambassador at Large Dr. Geeta Rao Gupta, right? And at 9:30 at 11, the Women, Peace and Security Reception. 13:15 keynote speech by NATO. So they're starting off with the woke stuff. Women, peace and security. Women. So it's women, as if Ursula von der Leyen and these kinds of clowns are going to make, Annalena Baerbock. Is that the women, peace and security? These fascists ain't bringing no peace and no security. But that's what they got to say. That's the kind of stuff they got to say. Women, peace, and security. That's what NATO is about. And that's the woke stuff. And then, of course, they've got their, remarks by the NATO Secretary General and Secretary of State of the United States. You notice nowhere you see Joe Biden saying anything. I would think that he would do the opening. Look, keynote speech, NATO Secretary General. Women, peace, and security. Those people there speaking. So it opens and everybody, Jen Stoltenberg. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, there we go. It ends with a speech by U.S. President Joe Biden. Now, that's one. That's one. That was 5 o'clock. Oh, you're probably not even going to be able to get the video of that because this poor bastard just stumbling. I'm sure Jill is standing there propping him up. She's probably standing beside him. Joe, You did very good. You answered every question about Vladimir Putin. Good job. You know, like when they teach a kid to poop. Hey, little Joey, you sat down on the little pink toilet. Good job. You pooped. And little Joey goes, ah, and his little snaggly tooth grin. That's what Joe's going to do. If he doesn't poop himself, it'll be a miracle. Right? It will be a miracle if this guy doesn't poop himself, which, well, he will, but he's got on the pin, so thank God we won't know it. Let's see what we got. Leader's doorstep, right? Let me see what we got here. Welcome ceremony and official photo. The heads of state and government. You know, Biden's going to be wandering all over. You know how that's going to go. That's what I'd love to see. The meeting of the heads of state, because they'll all be standing in a line, like grinning, cheesing, pointing to the flag, you know, or pointing to their like swastikas and stuff like that. And Biden's going to be like wandering around, sticking his hand out, looking to who does he shake hands with. You know how he does. They'll all be standing there like this, and then like some of Maloney or somebody will go have to like use one of those shepherd hooks to put it around his neck and yank him back into the picture. You know what I think they're going to do with Joe Biden at some point? You see this a lot in DC, where you'll see there'll be like two women usually, and they will be babysitting, you know, a bunch of kids. They're like 4 years old, 3-4 years old, right? You see this in DC. They're walking down the street, and what they got this little, usually it's maybe a belt or a little hand thing and a little snap, and it's a little rope that runs along, and even with little snaps, and each kid is snapped. So it's like a woman here, a woman there, right? And in between, every few feet, there's a little snap, and there's the kids, and they walk them along like a little train, right? That's what they're going to have to do with Joe Biden. They're going to have to make some kind of a snap, some kind of a leash so he doesn't wander off. Maybe a choker chain like some people use for dogs when they're trying to change them, train them not to go at and bark at other and go after other people. Have a little choker chain for Joe Biden when he starts to wander off, just yank on, and he comes back in. Come on, get back over here, Joe. Stop chasing that guy with that parachute. Right? So that's an idea. That's the thought. You could always... Here's a picture of Joe Biden. You got to see this. I got this on my Facebook page. You'll love this. You will love my Facebook page. You will love my Facebook page picture of Joe Biden. Now, there may be people here who are not Star Trek fans, but those of us who are will remember a particular episode with a Captain Pike. Right? You might remember good old Captain Pike, and some aliens had taken Captain Pike away, and they had done all kinds of terrible experiments on him. And when they finally got him back, he was in some kind of a wheelchair looking thing. And there you go. I think, actually, you know what that is? That's the Nato meeting there. That's the Nato meeting. And there you got Jens Stoltenberg in the blue behind him, and you got a couple other members of NATO. What do you know? You got Joe Biden there. So I think we could go with that as a picture of the NATO meeting. That's Joe Biden in a NATO meeting with that vacant stare on his face. But at any rate, so as we continue. So basically, they are there pushing the lie that they're standing against Russian aggression, trying to figure out how they can pilfer some more loot out of out of people. You know, they still got, I see it every now and then. We still got some idiots running around with blue and yellow flags. I had a guy on my Facebook page who I was like, I can't even talk to you, because he was like, well, because we want to stand up for freedom and democracy in Ukraine, you know, stand up against Vladimir Putin for freedom and democracy. And I'm like, dude, how do you overthrow a country, install a puppet government, drag that country into a war to get crushed and destroyed, torn to shreds, that literally the front is now loaded with Ukrainian kidnapping victims, and argue that you're standing up for democracy? But at this point, a big part of it is theft. A big part of this is, as Tony Blinken said, look, we got to make sure that the people understand how important it is that we invest. In other words, we want your money, man. This is a stick up. Put them up. Empty your pockets. Let me see that wallet. You got anything in there? Let me take a look at that watch. Oh, you got a watch. Looks like I may be able to get $50 for that. Give me it all. That's what they're bringing them here to shake them down. They're bringing them here to steal their loot. And also, one of the things that said in the Washington Post was that they were going to show unity. Unity, really. Orban's in China and Russia trying to, and basically, you know what Viktor Orban's saying. Viktor Orban is pretending as though he's dealing with people who are sane and rational. So Orban's like on TV, well, I'm standing here because I think he's on TV, he's being interviewed. He's like, I'm standing here, on behalf of Europe. Great, but they probably don't want me to be here. But somebody needs to talk about peace and security in Europe, and so I'm going to talk to the Russians and Chinese and see if we can get some things worked out, get some peace. That's my thing, yeah, right. But behind the scenes, when the door closes, he's sitting there with Putin, and they're just like, dude, I need a drink, and they take a shot of vodka. They're like, you got to be shitting me. And Orban's like, have you seen Biden lately? And Putin's like, yeah, what am I going to say? Orban's like, yeah, what am I going to say? This freaking guy's, his brain's fried. These people are idiots. I'm dealing with a bunch of goose-stepping, Sieg Heil yelling Nazis, for God's sake. Behind closed doors. I bet you Orban and Putin had a real conversation where he's like, you got to be shitting me, dude. What am I going to do with these people? They're out of their minds. And Putin's like, yeah, I know. You think you got to deal with them. I got to deal with these people starting a war on my border. They're a couple more shots of vodka. They're probably like get to the point where they're like doing that Cossack dance where their arms are crossing, they're going down and up, kicking their feet around. Oh, they're probably having a blast. I mean, what the hell? I mean, if you're dealing with these idiots, you might as well have a few shots of vodka and do the old Cossack kick for a while and hang out, kind of like bros, high five. And then go on, and then, of course, go back out to the door where the cameras are there, look serious. We had a very serious talk and a very serious discussion about peace. And certainly feel as though that we made a lot of headway. I'm now en route to Beijing to meet with Chairman Xi, President Xi, whatever you want to call him, Xi, and I'm sure we can get lots done there. What? If I was Orban, that's what I do. I just go hang out with these guys, take some shots, dance around a little bit, have some fun, and head on back. I mean, what are you going to do? Can you really make have a sense in talking to like the president of Estonia? They're like, hey, literally. I looked and one day, and it's like Estonia says they're ready to send troops, and I'm like, I could probably go to the community association where I live and say, hey, we need to get some troops together to send Ukraine and get more people from this neighborhood than Estonia has in their entire army. I'm going to be like, hey, what about that kid up the street? What kid? The one that's always basketballs rolling out in front of my friggin' car when I'm driving past the mailbox. Yeah, you mean little Tommy? Yes. What about him? I don't know. Tommy's not busy. We'll send Tommy. What the hell? Before you know it, I get together a couple dozen 14-year-olds, and that would be double what Estonia could put together, literally. So, I mean, we got countries like Estonia saying they're ready to fight Russia. That's where we are now. Estonia, you know what? I would love, wouldn't it be great? This would be the best thing you could ever dream of. When these little yappy mouth bastards start that crap, Estonia says, you know what? We're ready to send troops now to fight the filthy Russians. Wouldn't it be great if like Biden and Stoltenberg would call Estonia and say, look, you guys ready to fight the Russians for sure because NATO's ready to move? And Estonia said, yes, we're in. We're down, brother. Where did you just tell us where to be? How many troops you got? Yeah, like 100 guys or something, I think. I'm not sure. Wait a minute. How many we got? We got 99. One guy has the flu. We got 99 guys. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We got an alley for you right down the middle of Ukraine. We got a cluster of about 80,000 Russian troops. They're in a valley. They'll never see your 99 guys coming. We're going to heavily arm them. We're going to give them heavy machine guns. We're going to give them a couple Bradley vehicles, something like that, maybe a Jeep or two, right? And we want the Estonian military to take out 100,000 Russians. Because, I mean, they're Russians. They can't really fight. They're not very bright. So, yeah, certainly they're running around bumping into each other like the Keystone Cops. So what do you think, Estonia? You ready to fight? You ready to go? You got 99 guys? We're going to arm them. We're going to get you an alleyway. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll fly them in there in solid choppers. We'll drop them right on the edge of this encampment of 100,000 Russians. So you'll have them surrounded. And we want those 99 guys to close and destroy on 100,000 Russians. You will be the greatest fighters in history. What do you think, Estonia? You ready to fight? You got 100,000 Russians just sitting there waiting to be taken. Go for it. That's what I'd like to see with Estonia or one of these other countries when they start yapping, for somebody to say, you ready to fight? Yeah, you okay. All right. Now, we don't have anybody to help you right now. I wish we had some more troops or some ammo or something like that. But you know what? You're Estonia and you hate them damn Ruskies. And you know, what do you need? You don't need our help because you're badass. You're ready to take out Russians. You are there. You were born to kill Russians. So what we're going to do is we're going to help you out. We'll give you that opportunity. I bet you, maybe I'm wrong, I bet you Estonia would rethink their plans. Well, wait, what are you going to do? You mean you're sending, but we thought that we were going to send our 99 guys to help you, and you were going to send in 250,000 troops to fight Russia. No, we ain't got 250,000 troops, but hold on, but time out. What we don't want to do is get in your way, Estonia. We don't want to, because we know even if we had 250,000 troops, they don't have the grit, man. They don't have the anger. They don't have the toughness of Estonian troops. So what we're going to do is we'll heavily arm you guys. What do you got? You need some Bradleys. Let's see, 99 trip. 4 ought to do it. Yeah, I think you put 25. Okay, 4 or 5. We'll give you 10 Bradleys. You can put 10 guys in each Bradley. We'll drop them off, surround those Ruskies. You'll catch them in a crossfire, light them up. No more Ruskies. 100,000 of them dead in less than an hour. Killed by 99 Estonian troops. Let's get it done. I bet you, I may be wrong, but I suspect that Estonia would say, that's not the way we planned. See, because right now what we got is this. We got countries like Estonia talking a big mouth, lot of yap for Americans to go in and die. That's what they're talking a lot of trash for Americans and Brits and all these other guys. They got nothing. If I'm not mistaken, I don't even think they got an Air Force anymore. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think Estonia has an Air Force. They may have, like, there we go. Hey, Estonia, you want me to lend you my Air Force? There we go. There we go. That's it. That's pretty much the Estonian Air Force right there. See what I mean? Flies over you, scan your camera. I guess I can tie something and release a grenade or drop or something on you. I'm thinking it's Estonians. Yeah, so screw around with the Estonians, buddy, or you're going to go down. You're done. At any rate, so let's continue. So the other part is that Blinken said is they want to come together to show unity. Need I even address that? Here's what I mean. Unity amongst who? Certainly not amongst the people. You have people who are like, hey, we want to go at it with Russia. Really? What do the people of your country think? Ruling elite of France, ruling elite of Germany, ruling elite of all over Europe, ruling elite of the US. What do the people of your country, what do the hardworking people who get up every day, those who haven't lost their jobs due to your incompetence, what do they, who haven't had their industry closed down, what do those people think? Well, they just want to work and just want to live a better life. Oh, really? And what you want to do is show unity, not with them. See, that's the other thing. They have no desire to show unity with the people, because if they show unity with the people, they'd have to do something to help the people, to look out for the people, to improve the lives of the people. They're making the everyday working class person live a miserable life of hell, getting poorer, can't barely afford to eat, can't afford to, it ain't going to be a pleasant winter for a lot of people in Europe, and unable to pay their heating and energy bills. And come this winter, for instance, Germany is not going to have the money to subsidize people's heating bills anymore. We'll see how that works out. Revolution will be here. They'll be in the street like, hey, I'm cold. Yeah, well, but we can't help you out. Why? Because we got to buy more Bradleys. We got to buy more missiles. What do they buy? I think 3.5 billion. I think Germany bought 3.5 billion euros worth of air defense systems from Israel. Let me ask you this, out of curiosity: how are those air defense missile systems working for Israel right now? Not so good. Hezbollah's blasting the hell out of with missiles. Okay, Iranian missiles going through those things, going through those air defense systems like a hot knife through butter. Drones going through. In fact, Hezbollah released a video, right? They released a video where they had a drone that just pretty much flew all over Israel, flew over their ports, took pictures, flew over their military industrial complex. A drone just flew over all of their bases, took video, took pictures, and flew back. What got it? And their air defense system did nothing. And basically Hezbollah said, "We're just trying to throw this out there, bruh. We got everything targeted, okay? We flew drones over it. Next time it ain't gonna be a drone. Next time, whatever flies over, it's gonna be loaded with TNT, high explosive, and it ain't coming back. It's gonna be a one-way trip. Next thing that goes to that port ain't coming back from that port, and ain't gonna be much less of that port. You don't want none of this." So I'm just saying, Germany spent $3.5 billion on Israel. Basically, they gave Israel 3.5 billion euros for nothing, for crap that don't work. It was their way of giving Israel money because nobody else wants that crap, because people want S-400s and S-300s and Buks and various Russian anti-aircraft systems. You know why? Because they work. Because they work. And instead of buying stuff that costs 10 times the size from the US or Israel, 10 times the cost from the US or Israel, that doesn't work. Doesn't work. Not interested. Don't want it. Just another money laundering operation. And I will guarantee you this, poor German people, that $3.5 billion, they probably didn't deliver one anti-aircraft system. That went into the hands of crooks. You know the game. You think Baerbock and Pistorius and those guys give a crap about? You think they're buying hardware? No, they ain't. They're filling their filthy pockets. It's going in, the 10% is going to the big guy, and the rest of these crooks and criminals are distributing it through their network of NGOs and think tanks. A big part of these NGOs and think tanks is money laundering, so they can distribute their money amongst their friends. That's what it's all about. It's all a big money laundering operation. And, are they trying to rule the world? Yes. But while they try to rule the world, more importantly, they're trying to steal and rob the world, particularly the citizens of their own countries. And now Blinken says that the NATO meeting has to show how unified they are against the Russian aggression. And the story, for those of you who may not be here, the story here is what? In the US. Is it NATO? No, it is not. Is it Russian aggression? Nah, not interested here in the US. How about the China? Yeah, the commies are coming to get us. No. Right now, people aren't even, sadly and unfortunately, talking about the genocide going on in Gaza much anymore. You know what they're talking about? Joe Biden's brain. That's what they're talking about. So while they're there to bringing people over to the NATO meeting to say, don't forget, we need more money, you ignorant suckers, cough it up, this is a stick up. While they're saying, hey, we're all here to show the world how unified we are, and we're all sticking together, the Americans are saying, you guys are really following behind Joe Biden. Even the Americans are saying, they're looking at it like, you guys think he's your leader? That like, if aliens would land and say, take me to your leader, what, in NATO, think about this. Alien ship lands at NATO headquarters and says, take me to your leader. Are you gonna take him to Joe Biden? Sure, let's go over here. This is our leader. The aliens would be like, let me show you. Hey, take me to your leader. And the aliens you're going to be like, yeah, there we go, right there. Wheel them on up. Here's our leader right there. Oh, JB. What are you going to look at it like? Yeah, what do you think the aliens are going to do? They're going to blow up the planet. They're going to blow up the planet. If I was an alien and I said, take me to your leader, and you're like, okay, come on. And the guy's like pooping, and the aliens are like, God damn, what's that smell? And I looked at Joe Biden, and he had that look on his face that, a baby has when he's training. And they're like, Hey, Meebzorb, do you smell what I smell? Yeah, I think this human over there just pooped himself. Yeah, we got to get off this planet. That's their leader. That's what an alien would do. I'm out of here. Get out of the hell out of here. And then, I mean, who else are they going to take them to? So, bottom line is this: that's what Americans are talking about. Joe Biden's like right now, literally, the Democratic Party is like, Biden, you got to go. This is really what's going on. Biden, you got to go. And Biden's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm the president of the United States, and I'm in charge, and you can't make me. And they're like, but Joe, the donors are saying you can't go, or they'll stop giving us money. And Biden's like, I want it. Let's not talk about it anymore. It's time to move on. And they're like, but Joe Biden, Joe, you can't be president. You. Here's the thing about it. Think about this. Joe Biden deciding whether he should continue on. You know what that's like? Let's just say somebody takes a baseball bat and they whack me right in the old medulla oblongata, right? Right in the old cranium, the frontal cortex, right? They take this friggin' baseball bat, and I'm like this. What the hell? I just and somebody says, Garland, are you okay? Never ask a guy who just got hit in the head with a baseball bat if he's okay, because the part that could accurately answer that is the part that got hit with the baseball bat. He cannot answer you. What's he going to say? Hey, Garland, you okay? Sure. Yeah, I'm fine. Never been better. Whatever you, right? I just got hit with a baseball bat. So right now, Joe Biden doesn't know, who he is, where he is, wandering aimlessly. He's completely brain dead. But yet, we're supposed to think that he had the wherewithal to decide whether or not he should stay in a race. And they can't 25th Amendment him, because that would be an admission of reality. That, you know what that would be an admission of? And here's the other problem that they have. And that is, and again, this gets back to Nato. He ain't running things. And he never was running things. He ain't running things now. And that what they're saying is, well, the donors, the Democratic Party is saying Joe Biden can't be president because he another 4 years, because he don't know what the hell he's doing. His brain is freaking Swiss cheese. But he can be president for the next 4 months. Well, those two things don't go together. And he can lead NATO until such time, well, not just 4 months, because then you got November, December, and up until January the 20th. So he's got like 6 months. So what they're saying is this bastard cannot be president for another 4 years because his brain is holier than the Pope. But he can be president for the next 6 months. When reality is he can't be president for the next 6 minutes. But he wasn't president in the first place, because the truth is coming out. And that is that he ain't calling the shots. And that we don't really know who is calling the shots. Well, we know Blinken and Sullivan and the scum of their nature are doing terrible things, and that they're guiding us into an unthinkable hole of hell. But are they really the people making the final decisions? Are they really pushing this thing? Now, Blinken, I told you, I believe this guy's an Israeli spy all along. From day one, I believe, and I don't mean that in jest. I mean, I believe he's an Israeli spy. I believe that. I mean, and you probably heard me say this before. Think about it. Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, who you might have heard of from the book that was written about him, Robert Maxwell, Israeli super spy. Okay, he had an attorney by the name of Samuel Pisar, Pisar. Robert Maxwell, Israeli super spy, had an attorney named Robert Pisar, and that was Tony Blinken's stepfather. You don't think that Pisar, a Jewish guy born in Poland, I think he was born in Poland, Jewish. So bottom line is, you think that he was Robert Maxwell's lawyer and he was an Israeli spy, and that Maxwell was, and you think that Tony Blinken, I believe that Blinken's an Israeli spy, just, whatever you want to call it, spy, if that's the term you want to use, that's the term I'll use. But I believe that about him, that he's not the Secretary of State of the United States. He is an actor who acts on behalf of of Zionism, of worldwide Zionism. That's what he is. He is a Zionist spy a worldwide Zionist spy. That's all he is. And now he's got a brain dead boss, which is just the way Zionist spies like it. And him and old Jacob Sullivan, who may very well also be a Zionist spy, are doing what Zionist spies do. That's what I think. And there's a lot of evidence to prove, behind that. But at any rate, so what we got is a Zionist spy-led government. But so people say, well, I don't know who's running things. Yeah, well, the Zionists or the Zionist world Zionism is doing that. Which Zionism is fascism. It's just a flavor of fascism, just like butterbeet pecan and strawberry cream are both, strawberry banana. I just had some recently, ice cream. I don't eat ice cream much, but it's a flavor of ice cream, an exotic flavor. That strawberry banana. How about that, huh? That's all Zionism is. Fascism, there's Nazism, that's one flavor. Zionism is a flavor. Not a whole lot different in a lot of ways. They love to kill lots of innocent people, men, women, and children, and try to dominate things and claim that they are the God's chosen people. The Aryans were nature, maybe God's chosen people. I don't know. They the Nazis did a lot of references to old Nordic symbolism and things like that from 1,000 years ago. The Zionists love to look, God did this for me 1,000 years ago. Same kind of thing. It's just a kind of religious / ethnic based fascism. And ethno-fascism, right? And so that's where I think the U.S. is really being run. I mean, I'll say what I think. I think the U.S. is being run by ethno-fascists at this point, and then some regular fascists. But at any rate, but yeah, that's where we are. And Europe, you've got Macron and these people who are just following along, doing what they're told. And whatever the narrative they're given, that's the narrative that they push. If they're told, this is the narrative today, they run with it. Hey, there's a bunch of sailboats loving Ukrainians who just blew up the Nord Stream. Yeah, whatever. What do they care? They're all getting paid. It's just as good an answer as anything. All right, so let's look. We're going to see not a lot of there's not a lot, but we're going to see if there's any super chats, because I want to answer any super chats that may be there, because we really get a lot of good questions from super chats. Well, we're rolling along. I'm working on trying to get Andre Martyanov and Scott Ritter for Thursday night at 9 p.m. That'd be awesome. Thanks, Ray B. I'm working on those guys. Deek Salad. Thank you, Deek. Great. Certainly appreciate it. Macharia says Blinken has dual loyalties. At least he's unfit. Yeah, I don't think he's got dual loyalties at all. I think he's only got one loyalty, and it ain't here. But one could argue, call that dual loyalties. Thank you very much, Eleanor Johnson. I certainly appreciate that. Anna Mayer says the U.S. is, in my opinion, is just a chaos agent. Yes, I agree with you. Alex Fox, thank you very much. Let's see, what do we got here? What about just knows that Garland finally got some mods. Let's see, what do we got? George Galloway. I like food. Okay. What about somebody's got this. What about the bourgeoisie? The ruling class that owns the means of production. Well, that's what, and I continue to talk about the ruling class. So that's when I talk about the ruling elite, ruling class. Blinken doesn't have dual loyalties. He doesn't give a rat's ass about the U.S. He only has one. There we go. A man after my own heart, or woman. I didn't see. Putin's shirt. Thank you. Bureau of Indian Affairs is for Indians. Homeland Security is the Bureau. Oh, geez, they just don't know it yet. That's hilarious. Somebody's got, we get all kinds of stuff. 70% of Biden's cabinet. Let me say something about that. I'm going to say something about that. I do have a fear and concern, right? Because a lot of people knew my brother passed away. He was Jewish, and I still have a lot of friends from his synagogue. And my brother converted in the military to Judaism, and I have like a bunch of very good friends my friends are socialist Jews, like real lefties. But bottom line is that there is a fear and concern because I believe, as has been said, for every revolution, there's a counter revolution, right? I believe that the fact that Biden's cabinet is very, very, very heavily populated by Jewish people, and it is a cabinet of absolute fascism, brutality, and horror, if there ever was one. At the same time, they're aligned with a Zionist nation, which posits itself as the leader of world Jewry, right? I have this fear that this might not work out well for Jewish people around the world. To be quite frank, since the Biden people and their ungodly monsters that he has, right? These fascist monsters, and seeing the unthinkable brutality and violence of fascist Israel, I fear that there'll be a lot of that basically nothing could bring more anti-Semitism and anger and hatred towards Jews than the fact that Biden has a very heavily Jewish influenced cabinet, and that they're fascist as hell, and that Israel posits itself as the head of world Jewry, which clearly it's not, but it's fascist as hell, right? And that people are much into symbolism. So if they see some Jewish people doing something, they'll just get mad at all Jews. Yeah, well, my brother would be walking down the street. Hey, that guy's Jewish, isn't he? Yeah, well, this black guy doesn't really look Jewish, but what the hell, he's Jewish. Let's get him. And they'll attack him because they hate Netanyahu and because they hate Blinken and Sullivan. My brother's Jewish, God rest his soul. They kill him, right? Some guy, hey, what happened? Well, a black person. I had that happen to me one time when I was I never forget, I was in middle school, and this kid wanted to fight me for whatever reason, and we ended up in the principal's office, and the conversation and the guy was like, yeah, because a black guy did something to my brother, beat his brother up or something. And I'm just sitting there in the principal's logo, and I'm like, what the hell is this? A black guy beat up his brother? Okay. At that time, I was 5'7". I'm like, okay, I'm 5'7". If a 5'7" guy beat up his brother, would he come say, I'm fighting you because you're five? I remember I had that conversation. What do you say? I'm fighting Garland. Why? Well, a 5'7" guy beat up my brother, and you're 5'7". So hey, you symbolize that guy. I'm getting you. I never forgot that. It always stuck in my mind when people are like symbolic that they want to get somebody who is a member of a group, because somebody else who's a member of their group, keeping in mind that these groups are invented in our minds that we create, we place people comfortably into little boxes so that we can know he's a man, she's a woman. That gets you a lot of trouble these days. This person's black, white, green, gray, grizzly, whatever. This person's a father, a brother, a son, a cousin. We put them in all these different boxes, right? And then somebody comes along and says, that box you're in? No, I really don't. Well, I just made it up. It's all in my head anyway, so you don't know anything about it. But that's not important now. What's important now is the box that I have in my head that you are comfortably placed into. Someone else who I actually comfortably placed into the same box did something to me that I don't like. And you're like, okay, and so I'm gonna have to beat you up. Why? Because you kind of symbolically represent the other person in the whole box thing. It's not important now. What's important now is I gotta beat you up because of something that you have, because some people that you never met did some things that you know nothing about, and you really have no relationship to this other person other than in my head where I placed into the same box. And we have social agreements that certain people with certain characteristics will go into certain boxes, and we can then symbolize people in those boxes and attack people in those boxes because they're in that. That's kind of the way the thing looks to me. And so what actually happens is at some point somebody says, hey man, Biden's cabinet's full of Jewish guys and they're fascist as hell. And my God, I don't look like what the Jewish people in Israel are doing. And as a result of that, some poor Jewish schmuck is walking down the street, eating his ice cream, minding his business. One of my dear little socialist Jewish friends who opposes all of that stuff, who's where I am, who agrees with me and you on all of this stuff, but he's walking down the street. Old, whatever his name is. Bill Goldberg's walking down the street, and some guy's like, yeah, Jewish guy, and attacks him and beats poor Bill Goldberg to death. And Bill Goldberg literally agrees with him on everything. But symbolically, he represents this other group, right? I do have a fear, especially when I look in the chat, especially when I go online, when I lurk, I love to do that, to like go to some other shows, whether it's, Caleb Maupin show sometimes. It may be the Duran, it may be Jimmy Dore. I'll go and just kind of lurk, and every now and then I'll put something in there. But a lot of times I'm just kind of lurking in the background, looking to see what people say. And I see a lot of anti-Jewish stuff where people don't like Jews. They're like, look at what these Jews are doing. And I'm like, well, no, these are very particular people, and this is a very fascist, particular Zionist group. But if there was a bunch of black guys who came together with a group and it was like the Black Zionists or something, I wouldn't want to get beat up and killed because of what they did, because I don't agree with them. But unfortunately, that's kind of where we are. And I have this fear that there will be a marked increase in anti-Semitism and violence against Jewish people as a result of what Blinken and these crazies and of what Netanyahu and these fascists are doing, that it's going to cause the innocent Jewish people to suffer. I really think that that may be a future that we're looking at, and I'm not happy about it. But at any rate, that's life. Thanks a lot, everybody. Someone says no one on Epstein's list has gone to jail. And it ain't happening. They ain't going to jail because they're the ones in charge. They're at the NATO meeting. How are they going to go to jail? They're not going to jail. They're going to the NATO meeting. That's where they are. If you want to see Epstein's list, go to the NATO meeting. I will bet you right now there's probably like child traffickers all the child traffickers are in DC right now. What are you doing now? We're bringing all of our child prostitutes here because hey, that's what these guys do. I mean, that's their number one thing. You know what? Davos, when all of these rich people get together, I don't know if you know it, prostitution is heavy. These high-class prostitutions all come into town, all come into the areas because these guys are all partaking of high-class prostitutes. At any rate, thanks a lot, everybody. Don't forget a couple of things. Numero uno. You see everything going across the line, the bottom, buy me a coffee, Patreon, Cash App, you name it. Buy me a coffee is great because you can do just like Patreon. You can just do buy Garland a coffee. How much? $5. How many? One, or however many you want. But you can also say, I want to be a monthly subscriber, whatever it is, and I want to do $5 or how many coffees I want to do per month. So buy me a coffee. It can be one time or it can be like Patreon. Of course, we got PayPal, we got Cash App, all that information going along. And don't forget, Rumble. Follow me on Rumble because if they throw me off of YouTube at some point, I just want to make sure that everybody knows where to find me the very next day. Or Rockfin, ROKFIN, rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. It's free. However, Rockfin does not charge, does not have it doesn't have getting like Joe Biden advertisements. So they do allow people to be subscribers. That's how they stay on. They stay in business. So if you can afford it, you don't have to. If you can afford it, Rockfin, become a subscriber. My channel is $14.99 a month. If you can afford it, it's great. If not, no problem. Also, go to my political superfood, my Substack. I'm going to be getting a weekly article out there and become a member, paid or otherwise. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day. I am